Hi folks, welcome back to the Carver's Woodshop. This is Arlene once again. I want to start explaining to you a couple things about wood carving. First of all, we need to cut out the pattern. The pattern is 4.5 or 4 1/4 inches long. You can cut 5 inches out if you want from a block. And what you want to do is have it 1 3/4 inch thick. I already started carving here a little bit to see how the wood was. What you want to do is you want to draw that on a piece of paper, cut it out like I did here, then lay it on top of your block, and then cut it out on a bandsaw or with a coping saw or a jigsaw if you have a buddy that can do that. This is the shape we want, and we want it square, okay, on the top. Now normally in a bandsaw, if you have a bandsaw, you would cut these other portions out, these rounded portions. But since I'm teaching you how to use your knife and how not to use your knife incorrectly, we are going to practice shaving all that off. We'll give you some practice on how to hold the knife. That's the whole purpose of this little project that we have here. So what we're going to do is, the first thing you want to do after you cut it out on a bandsaw is you want to make a center line, okay, all the way down the center. Now I do a lot of measuring, and some of you know this, with my finger and a pencil. See how I can guide that all the way the same way, all the way around, because I'm leaning this finger against it. That's a little trick that I learned a long time ago. It saves you from using a ruler. The one way you can do this is you can make sure you're right in the center. You just make a little mark, and then you go and do the other side until you meet it up in the center, and then you put your line all the way around. Okay, so this is the center point this is our reference point all the way around. Okay, so then after you put that on, you want to make your little curvature here where we want to start cutting out the block. Okay, and this is going to be from the top view. So when we cut this out, it's only going to probably be this section right here. Okay, it's not going to be all the way down here. It's only what you see from the top down. Alright, so we're going to make sure you have a carver's glove on. I will not be wearing one, so please do as I say, not as I do. Put your little thumb protector on. If you don't have one of these, you can put a couple Band-Aids on. It works just as well. Not 100% as well, but just as well if you're in a pinch. So you can put a couple Band-Aids on or use this. And the reason we use this is if you start drawing this to yourself like so, see how it's protecting your thumb from being cut. Okay. I used to wear one quite a bit when they were available, but 28 years ago we had nothing available. No carving gloves, nothing. Like Gene Messer said on his tape, that really you new carvers have a well of information that we had no access to. We had to trace everything by hand out of a book or copy it over tracing paper. We didn't have copying machines back 28 years ago, and so we really were very primitive with wood carving, but the art is still about the same. The procedures and everything we've learned that we're teaching you are basically the same. I'm not a power carver. I'm strictly a knife person. I'm not a gouge or a V-tool user. If you're interested in that, there's plenty of other people that are into that, or chip carving. I do a little bit of chip carving, and that's a very interesting precision work. But what I do is stuff called in the round, and this is doing, when you talk about in the round, it's doing all the sides everywhere around the carving. So there's a couple ways to hold your knife. Let's start with that. To hold your knife, first of all, by this time you should have had 2 knives bought, or at least one. Okay, what you want to do is put your thumb guard on and put your glove on. Okay, once you put your carving glove on, what you want to do is learn how to handle your knife. There's 2 things you do not do. You never push with your arm, okay, like this, and you never pull with your arms like this. Okay, that is a no-no. That is where you end up in the hospital with major cuts when you slip. You never put the force behind your arm. The force comes basically from pivot motion, like I'm doing here, or drawing it to your thumb like this. Okay, so depending how that grain is running, and this grain is running this way, okay, and this is the way you want to cut it. You don't want to cut you don't want to cut across the grain. You want to go with the grain when you do a cutout. What you want to do is go with the grain, okay? The grain is running this way. So if we're cutting this out, which goes up, we can do it this way, okay? We can cut it out like so. And see how this is a perfect way to control your knife. Okay, see how I'm controlling that knife? It's not going all over the place. Okay, that's what you want to learn to do. You get used to that pivot motion, it will become second nature to you. It's just a perfect way to handle your knife. And I'll say this, you won't cut yourself near as often doing it this way. Not saying that you'll never cut yourself. You will, most likely. But how severely it is depends on the pressure you put on your knife. So it's never with force to your... Actually, the force is really coming from your hand, okay? Pulling this blade back, okay? And the pivot motion, it's a little bit of physics there. You know, it's leverage, okay? So what we can do is we can do it this way, or we can flip it around because the grain is running this way. Flip it around and hold your knife, pulling it towards yourself, and do it this way. Okay? But see how much force we have and how that's hitting that? That's why you should have a thumb guard on. That will help prevent any cuts in your thumb. And I've done that already by pulling it too hard. In fact, in one of my segments, I did cut myself just barely, but I did by pulling it too hard. Now, see how that's all ripped apart? That's from pulling that knife into the leather. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, what I want you to do on your first project is just do this corner. Okay? And we're going to just try to round this off. And it's very important that your knife is sharp. Alright? Just like so. Take your time. There's no hurry with this, folks, you know. No hurry whatsoever. So what I'm trying to do is look at it from the top and just cut this portion off. Alright, so what I want you to do when you're offline, I want you to go ahead and do both sides and both corners. We made a bit of an oval shape here for the shoes. So go ahead and cut this side out, and remember you can do it this way. And if you feel a tug, like if you go like this and you feel a tug, you know you need to turn your knife around and do it the other way. Okay? So let's get this done and the front done, and I'll be right back.